couple of questions. One for the one for the non-profit organization. You said that they've been implement they've been implementing the comply with the law. Yeah. Why is that? Why? Because it costing. The reason why it happened. Yeah, that's the question. And I was going to have a question for Suhail about the preventive measures, but I think he's covered it already. The question is, do you quantify it in Sudan? Do you know, is there a number saying 10% preventive now, or we need to achieve 15%, or is there any measures? That's the question.
Yes, it's the same as everywhere worldwide, and that's how we use that evidence. So imagine, as I said, after the huge World War II, millions of people died, and the life expectancy was about 40, 45 years, and now it's 90, it's going to 100 in the European countries, and places like Japan where people go beyond 100. And the main, when this was analyzed in detail, and there are papers on it, very well evidenced, the proportion of each bit of contribution was made. So the biggest ones were immunization, were sanitation, were things like antibiotics and so on. While the bit like, when you look at things like statins, for example, they're starting to grow now, but they're still very small. When you look at something like interventional cardiology, it's almost negligible really. So the whole hospital sector is very negligible in terms of its impact. And that's the problem in places like developing countries, that the biggest voices are those who are wanting more complex things in the hospitals and so on. But this does not really help anyone, barely help people. And actually, when you extend that to the economic impact for a country, it's even worse, it's negative. So actually it uses up resources, but it doesn't contribute to the actual overall development and economic output in a country. Malaria by itself, by the actual number of days lost in terms of economic output and people dying very early, it has a huge devastating impact in the economy. Some things like diarrhea and vomiting for children, that's amazing. This is millions lost, billions, but actually a person who is, and I'm sorry to say this, it sounds a little bit harsh, but if a person, for example, has renal failure, it's probably towards the end of their life and so on, but you spend so much money there, but the impact on the rest of the population and so on is minute. And the problem is, this is one of the issues about public health. Public health is political with a small p. So although war, for example, is a very big impact on everything. So it's the first number one thing you need to stop. But the second thing, when something positive, sometimes some things don't look like a positive thing. And I have to mention it. For example, the recent changes in moving the big central hospitals from Khartoum to the periphery and so on. That actually was done here in the UK as well. It's an important thing to move resources to other places and actually not to be completely taken up. And this is a long discussion, but something that actually we need to think about in a very, very systematic way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question on the social enterprises and why they're taking on the cost of implementing health and safety provisions. Was that your question, right? First of all, no matter whether it's a profit or non-profit organization, the main intention is to serve the community, the clients, people, the society. Now, if we take only non-profit organization, they're more focused in providing the service or doing good for the society. And in doing that, if they do not maintain the health and safety provisions, then they're putting the public or the community in more risk. Like if you consider a hospital where they're providing service, and if they do not maintain the health and safety provisions, then they will be risking the life of people getting or being served in that hospital. So that's why it's even more critical for non-profit making organization to maintain health and safety provisions. Yeah. Yes. Well, there are state law. There are also, if you look at United Kingdom, they have councils and local authorities, and definitely state. They have particular law in what is the minimum requirement of health and safety provisions the organization will have to maintain to operate in the community. Whether it answers your question. Thank you.
Okay.
It's not okay. Luay Khalifa, I'm a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, also a college tutor, and I work as an appraiser for doctors on behalf of the Scottish government. Right, 6 gentlemen here, and they are all being very passionate about their subjects. They are all very important subjects. But I just wonder, I mean, it's a comment, and I don't know if we're going to be here until 3 o'clock answering this, but the problem we seem to have in Sudan, there is no streamline for anything. There is no pathway, there are no pathways, okay? I mean, the renal failure patient is as important as the children dying 200 miles down the road because of gastroenteritis. And maybe we need, it costs money, I know that, but maybe we need people working on pathways and trying to bring all these talents and people who are very passionate and very keen to do something for their country to work together, whether there is money or there is no money, whether you are with the government or you are not with the government. Who put the slide of a fan, something hot? We need to, there was a, yeah. So, I mean, this can be a question for the 6 of you, can be the question for everybody here, and maybe we can have some sort of brainstorming later in the afternoon after we have lunch. How can we do this? And I think Professor Alam mentioned this earlier, that we need to sit together and talk how can we achieve this, because anesthetists are important, leaders are important, public health, I think I am important as well, but I can't find a pathway. I can't find this. Here, I take my relative to the hospital, shivering from fever, handed my relative to the A&E, and I will go home and sleep. And probably I will ring in the evening to see, oh, how is my relative? You can't do that back home. You have to be there. You have to go and run and buy things. You have to. So this is, it's a comment, it's a question, and I don't know if we have maybe 1 minute for each person to say something, or we can just go for lunch and forget about it. Thank you.
Why not? Why not? Is a good subject. I think anybody want to comment?
Absolutely, I completely agree. I mean, everyone has their role to play, but I can summarize that everyone in one word, which is leadership, and I come back to it. That leadership is a generic skill, and we miss it in Sudan very dearly. As I said, we tend in Sudan, even the Al-Ghafir fi Bab al-Mustashfa will think he's a leader and actually exercise his control on who goes in and who goes out. But that's, you know, unfortunately, that concept of actually true leadership, which actually, if you read through the King's Fund, for example, research, it has developed so far. And the collaborative leadership, especially in system-wide leadership, is what makes things work. So you mentioned the thing about these pathways. Who does the pathways? It's people who do all these things, the people who come together in this organized and systematic way of working, especially whole systems working. And for example here, I wish we can actually jump, and we should be able to in Sudan, because we're closer to it than in the UK, for example. that cross-system working, that whole system working, where education, housing, work with the community leaders, with the religious leaders and so on, can actually, that cumulative leadership actually can break the mold and get us to the next stage quicker than actually going through all the trials that people went through over 40 years. There was some slides I couldn't show at the end, but you can see it in work in the paper, for example, around microfinancing and mobile health. These are things which are just starting here in the UK and in the rest of the world, but we already started in Sudan as well. So these things are actually can jump across the epochs in a sense, but it needs leadership. I come back to this. Organized leadership, system leadership. That's the word that can actually get all us together.
I would like to add with the leadership concept that in my field of social entrepreneurship, we find it's a very common human tendency that we all tend to rely on the government or the authority who will do the things for the country rather than taking ownership of the country as a human being or as a person belong to that country. I think social entrepreneurship is a platform from where every human being can contribute to the community. And I think this can be one of the way, like you become a leader of yourself and contribute to the country you belong to.
I don't know much about Sudan, however, I can say how health and safety may be systematic in Sudan. One thing I can say at the moment, still we have health and safety within the HRM, but how we think about if we have something separate, safety management, the way we think about finance, accounts, HR. So if we have a separate department, probably we can make sure health and safety on place, and probably we can save money, time, and our valuable life. And this is how we can think about in Sudan and everywhere else. Thank you.
I won't be echoing. I completely agree what Rida said about his comment about leadership and a bit of health economics as well. But he did open a can of worms there when he talked about decentralization of the hospitals. I have a completely opposite view, something to talk about over lunch anyway. But actually, since no one asked me, I'm going to ask Sheikh Siddiq. Is anyone, are you worried about the mushrooming of the medical schools in Sudan? I mean, we seem to have more medical schools now than we have groceries. Is that something of a concern to you?
I think in addition to this, the question raised by Luai opens a debate that is much needed currently. And in fact, I think this conference can contribute because from what I see now and from our experience, the potential is there within Sudan and outside Sudan. Records of achievements are there. And those, as Rida was mentioning, was always pushed by true leadership in the health system, where we have examples of progress. I haven't got specific data with me now, but in terms of, for example, malaria control and these issues, a lot of progress has been done in Sudan in terms of reducing morbidity and mortality of some communicable diseases like malaria and others. Yet, big challenges are still there, and those are represented, if I might summarize, is this strategic planning, direction, and working together, and how people can come in and work together. Therefore, in my opinion, collaborative work and efforts should always be a subject of discussion, and that should be taken forwards. The issue raised by just raised about medical education by Suhail is an example of the overall framework of strategic planning in the country. It's not an easy it's not easy to answer that we do not need this number of medical school, or we Sudan has got now 37 medical schools. And as I came to this conference, I was in the Ministry of Higher Education in a meeting, and 2 more were approved. So they will add up soon to 39 or 40 medical schools. Yes, they are much. But when you look at the landscape of migration and these issues, again, it's not simple really to answer the question that this is, more than Sudan needs. But definitely, when you look at the other, parts of the health team, nurses, midwives, allied health professions, there is an evident skill mix imbalance in the country, and that should be brought to the forefront. And I'm glad that during the past few years we worked a lot on this, and now there are corrective measures. The medical schools are growing, yes, but nursing schools are also growing, and other types of health professionals schools are growing. This is a huge potential in Sudan now, not just for Sudan, but for other countries. I cannot go further, but I think the situation is challenging and a lot is needed. Thank you.
Okay, we'd like to award this appreciation award to the efforts. You can see they're all very busy people. Directors, he flew from Ireland, from Sudan. They're all busy people from them, but they did their effort. So this is the least to say. Thank you very much for taking the time. If you can help me to thank them. So if you can call them, Dr. Suhail. How do we do this?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think the wake of Al-Azhar.
Dr. Rahman Hassan.
Thank you very much. Maybe I should stay here. Okay.
Mr. Taslim Ahmed. Dr. Rida Al-Khair. Dr. Mun'im Al-Hassan.
And he's the one who did the cartoon.
Dr. Al-Mu'izz Siddiq.
Yes, before Al-Mu'izz, this is from yesterday. We have these 2 gifts, and I can explain them very quickly. This one, as you may remember, Dr. Al-Bashir said he is representing the paper on behalf of Dr. Sumaya. This Dr. Sumaya, she has been all the time trying her best to be here with you. Everything on time, presentation. She struggled with transferring her registration. She called her son in Germany to try. She did every effort, everything possible to be here, and eventually they refused her visa. So we want to send this back to Sudan. This was Ben, which is not available. Even in Harrod, you can find it. So to say to her how much we appreciate her energy. Despite all this, she insisted to still present it, and I think she contacted you. So we would like you to take this to her as an appreciation from her dedication to make this presentation. Thank you very much. And the one last, if you just wait, if you remember yesterday, I emailed everyone. I said to them, you remember those who were here yesterday, I said to them, for the people who have helped you from University of Sussex, if you can bring gift from Sudan, so it will be more symbolic. I remember, so Dr. Sheikh brought, you remember the things he brought yesterday? The items he said they will use for food, but can have a multiple purpose. I remember this story. One of the purposes I think in Sudan is this, they can be used by women and to hit the men. So thank you very much. This is I hope this is a British gift to take back to Sudan in what you have brought from Sudan. Thank you very much. Okay.